Writers live and work all the time with doubt, you know. Doubt that they've done it, doubt that they can do it, doubt that this one has worked, doubt the next one will work. We live with doubt. And a moment like this, when you hear that you won a prize like this, is a moment when, at least for a time, the doubt disappears.
I was over the moon and absolutely chuffed, and it was an honour to receive that, because I was a C average student. I failed English at school, so the little girl in me just jumped around with joy going, I finally passed, with recognition from my peers.
Every novel that wins a prize at the Premier's Literary Awards has been written by someone who at various stages have decided the novel is not going to go anywhere.
To win something like, you know, this award, it was just, I mean, it blew me away, to be honest.
It was very important to me. I'd just, after teaching for 10 years at Sydney University, I'd just given up my job, become a full-time writer.
And obviously it's a delightful surprise. It's wonderful to be judged positively by your peers.
It means a lot because other people celebrate it with you.
I think this award is in many ways particularly important because it's open to writers from beyond New South Wales. So in effect it is an Australian award, to all Australian writers. And without displaying some sort of cultural cringe, it is true that I come from the provinces, the other side of the continent, and that it matters to be speaking to all of Australia.
Actually, probably the most extraordinary thing is to receive the money. And a lot of people would ask me, are you going to go on a holiday? Or what are you going to do with the money? And I think, I'm going to live on it. And it'll probably see me out for a good year.
The cash does not hurt. You know, it gives you space to actually concentrate on your writing rather than trying to work out where the next paycheck will come from.
When the award was made in 1979, it was, of course, the first of all the Premier's Awards. And so it was a big move forward.
I think it does affect how you feel about yourself, winning a prize, and it also does affect how other people think about you.
With the award behind it, it's opened up doors and people are really interested and want to hear my interpretation on an iconic Australian story that's been around for a long time. So thank you very much.
There is great honour in being on the shortlist. In my own experience, it seems, without being in any way offensive to the judges, I trust, that from the shortlist it's a bit of a lottery. So the shortlist is, in fact, I think, what matters.
Anything that draws people's attention to a local book that seems to be of real importance, real interest, real quality, is a great thing.
But I think one of the great things about having had 40 years of New South Wales Premier's Awards now is that means that we've amassed a wonderful archive of 40 years of literary culture in New South Wales.
It's important to celebrate literature and writing because books stick around for a long time, well after our bodies have gone.
I think to celebrate Australian literature is really important because we've come from a whole tradition of ignoring it and of feeling it is lesser, that the better writers are somehow overseas. And I think that you do a great injustice to your country's culture by ignoring who's writing about it and who's trying to grapple with the complexities of it.
I think it's important to recognise and celebrate Australian writers because they're the only one that's telling your story, you know.
Whose story? Our story. In a sense, it's the only story you have.
Storytelling matters profoundly to human beings.
Storytelling is something we will never give up and can't do without.
I tell stories because I can't help it.
I tell stories because I come from a long line of storytellers. I'm an Aboriginal woman and we've been telling stories since time began.
Before I could write, when I was a child, I'd, write stories in the dirt in the backyard with a stick, making up my own alphabet. It just seemed to be a very natural impulse to invent stories in your head and then somehow to want them recorded.
I remember as a little girl growing up, sitting around their feet, listening to the very funny stories that you would laugh so much your face and your ribs would hurt.
Really good literature unnerves one. It takes you somewhere in to consider things that you might not necessarily have considered before.
There is a huge hole in the soul if we don't have our stories. And I'm delighted that there's so many Australian writers telling so many stories and filling that hole in the heart.
It's only been in the last couple of generations that Aboriginal writers have been published, and we've been able to tell our stories, our truths.
The stories we tell ourselves, particularly the ones we whisper one to one, that's not only who we are but who we'll become. No one else is going to share those stories, be in those stories with us. We're making our story.
What I always say to children is, when they tell me they want to be a writer, is I always say the world will always need good books, so please be a writer.
We want the many. We want the many voices and the many fables, because it has impalpably enriched Australia.
What's exciting is that we're such a multicultural country, and giving all these multicultural people of different races an opportunity to share their stories, it brings about understanding. And when we understand one another through story, everyone in Australia loves a good yarn. So if we can share that and share it for generations to come, then we're going to be a better nation. It's the oldest, the biggest and the best. And to win the New South Wales Premier's Literary Award is just amazing to have that on your CV. You know, it opens doors. And it, like for me, it's just really cool.
There's a lovely quote I read as I walked into this library. I can't remember it now. I wish I could. It would be a wonderful answer to that question.
And Patrick White accepted it on my behalf, which again was this great moment for me, and I'm sure for lots of other people too. They were probably more interested to see Patrick up there than they would have been to see me.
Mind you, I've been robbed a few times. When I talk about the quality of the judging, I have to confess to some disappointments once or twice. I mean, I'm happy enough on the whole, but really, once or twice, I don't know what they were thinking.
The New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards are the award to win in Australian literature. Miles Franklin, Stella. Not that I'm eligible anyway. What else is there? Prime Minister. What's a Prime Minister when you've got the New South Wales Premier? So clearly everyone is just gunning to win the New South Wales Awards, and the rest of them are just looking up going, I like my Victorian Premier's Award, but geez, I wish it had been the New South Wales one.